Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RD Squeeze, and we're in season 2.
We are. Oh my gosh. 10 episodes already done.
I know.
It's
It went by
crazy.
so quick.
Yes.
Well, welcome into the new year, too. I mean, we're a couple
Mhm.
weeks into the new year, but
Mhm.
that's good. So, yeah, we're talking about today. So, I guess in the last episode, I think we talked about we were kind of going to do like this basically a toolkit kind of debunking and like unveiling all of the insider like dietitian-y stuff. So, like the
Yes.
differences between like ACEND, CDR, and the Academy, which is what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about all the different pathways to become an RD,
Mhm.
and then like going into applying and just kind of almost, I don't want to say like a dummy's guide to all things dietetics, but kind of like that, but also helping students out or even just other professionals kind of help maybe use this as a resource to help other people. So, yeah, we're excited to get this kind of
Yeah.
like series, I guess, started.
Yeah. I think that's a good term for it.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get this started. We have a couple other fun surprises coming up. If you missed it, though, we were on a podcast recently, Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl Janine. We did a little collab, so we will have Janine on our podcast eventually. We have so much content we want to cover. We're trying to figure out the best time to like fit her in. So, but we definitely are going to have her on. But we did a really good episode, I think, about kind of debunking some myths and what to look out for red flags. And we talked a little bit about like the weight loss drugs that are out
Mhm.
and all those fun things. So if you haven't checked that out, please go check out that podcast episode because it was really great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Um, and I mean, Janine does a lot of stuff with me for comedy, so that was really fun. And you got to meet her kind of.
Yeah.
You met her before, but professionally, like we got to actually like collab
Right.
and talk to each other, so that was good. But yeah, so let's get into it, I
Let's
guess.
get into it.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
I know. And we have a lot of acronyms here. So we will go over them. But as we probably go through, we'll remind you sometimes of what they are. But today's episode, for sure, we're going to tell you what these acronyms mean.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, or AND would be the one acronym.
Yes.
Commission on Dietetic Registration, or the CDR, which is another acronym. And then ACEND, which is Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics. So if we accidentally let those slip before saying what they are, those are your key terms there for this episode, because it can get tiring to say all of those all at once. But so let's, I think, first start with maybe, I think a lot of people think the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is like the big overheading arch, which it kind of is.
Mhm.
So I think we're going to start with that one
I think that
first,
sounds good.
and then we'll go into the two other branches of CDR and ACEND.
Yes.
So, Emily, do you want to kind of start us off with what the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics does?
Yeah. So the Academy, I became an Academy member. So most people have to become a member. If you're retired, you remain a member and so forth. Students have to become members as well. And there are fees for these. So it's very similar to other associations, other societies, things like that for the nutrition and dietetics world. The academy is the biggest one, I will say, for dietitians. So if we have the American Society of Nutrition, that's another one. But in that one, we have a lot of other medical professionals that join that one.
Mm-hmm.
The academy typically is dietitians. Now, we welcome other professions into it. Typically, we're seeing a very heavy amount of dietitians, though, in that. So it's we advocate through the academy for our profession, and a lot of like public policy stuff happens through the academy. The academy has a lot of different sectors, I will say, as well. So they do continuing education sections. They have a section for the general public as well. They have a research section. They have a section for educators. So there's a lot of different sections that are available from the academy. It offers the members all these different areas as well. But then we also get the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So this is where a lot of mostly nutrition related research is put into. And a lot of those research studies might also be put into the bigger journals, I will say, as well. But we get that as part of our membership. I used to love getting it in print, but now we have the option to get it in print or not. And sometimes it's a good and bad thing to not get it in print. Sometimes I forget that it's there, but other times, it's easy enough to just go online and search for that. We also through the academy have what we call dietetics practice groups. So if you're specializing in different areas, if you are an educator, those are broken into even smaller groups where they can do even more educational handouts specific to sports nutrition, cardiovascular. I'm going to forget all of them, vegetarian nutrition. You name it, there's kind of a dietetics practice group. Mm-hmm. I'm a part of the oncology dietetics practice group. So you can become a part of these groups as well. So you get that more individualized practice information. A lot of them come out with their own newsletter, so that way updated research studies are kind of put into those newsletters. What else is put in there? I love those ones. Those ones are my favorite, and that's why I love becoming a part of different dietetics practice groups. I've been a part of a couple for quite a few years, but I've shifted gears and where I'm working and whatnot, so I've become a part of those. And everyone is kind of led by a group of their own leadership. Mm-hmm. So that way they can guide what are the members looking for in sports nutrition, in oncology, what are we looking at doing this year. Mm-hmm. So the members get benefit from that. So they can do a wide range of things. Some of them even have their own symposiums or CEU opportunities that they offer. Mm-hmm. For dietitians, for students. So that's always a benefit as well. Yeah. That you're a member of these different dietetics practice groups to be able to get individualized, specific CEUs to continue your education as a dietitian.
Yeah, and along with the dietetic practice groups, there's also the member interest groups. Yes. So those are, I think, more of what I'm involved in, which they're a little bit different. So it's like more about focusing on like your own membership and like, so one of them is like the cultures of gender and age group, which used to be like the 30 and under mm-hmm. group, but now I think they were opening it up pretty much to everybody. But it's kind of just like a good place for a specific amount of us, of diverse groups kind of come together to get resources and things like that, which they've provided scholarships and things like that. Then there's also like the member interest group for disabilities. There's like the Latinos or Lahidan in nutrition dietetics, Nobadan, which is I forget what it stands for. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. But I know it's Blacks in dietetics. And so there's a variety of different ones. I think there's a religious one. So like there's other specifics for that. So it does provide opportunity to kind of almost create additional communities. Another one I'm a member of is the educators and preceptors group. Because that one is a huge resource for me as an educator. So that's kind of where we get all those resources, and like there's discussion groups and all these things. So, and then in addition to that, you kind of talked about it, the academy does advocacy work for us. So a lot of the legislative stuff, basically lobbying on a federal level, happens through the academy. And then there's also the foundation, which funds scholarships and grants for a variety of different opportunities. And then there's also grants and things like that through the interest groups and stuff. So,
which is really important for students, especially with the scholarships. If you're looking at applying for internships or going to your master's program, that which we'll continue to talk about in this season, but they can be expensive, and we're going to talk about the diversity and inclusion part of it, and how getting students and getting a inclusive opportunity for students to be able to come into dietetics is very important in our profession.
100%. The other thing that I think is it could be misleading is, the academy is a group that you do have to pay to be a member of. And there are member benefits, some of them that we just talked about just now. And you do have to be a member to get scholarships, to be part of the other groups. So, but not all dietitians have to be members of the academy.
Right.
They are still responsible for abiding by the code of ethics that the academy puts out and being evidence-based, but they are not required to be members. We have seen membership go down through the academy, which I think maybe in the future we'll do an episode maybe about that. But with that, a lot of dietitians are not a part of it, and they're part of other groups. I think ASPEN is one, which maybe we'll talk about that in another episode. There's other groups that are also involved with nutrition, like you had mentioned too. But a lot of dietitians, and even so, other members can be student members and also dietetic technician registered, or NDTR. Geez, I'm talking too fast. Are also members of this group. And yeah, so there's pros and cons, I think, to being members. I think a lot of members have felt that the academy has not represented everything well, especially with some changes and things like that, or just advocacy. But we've been very clear about this. If you're not a member, you don't have the pull or the say to make change within the group. So I think that's where we kind of say, like, yes, they're not always representing everything that maybe we agree upon, and maybe we disagree with some things. But regardless, if we're not members, we don't really have a pull or a say in what we do, when we don't have access to the delegates that we have access to, because the academy does overarch each not district, state affiliate. And then within those state affiliates are sometimes districts or regions. So in Pennsylvania, we have our state affiliate, which me and Emily are very involved in. And then we were very involved in the district at the time. Now we've moved to a regional model, which again, I think we could talk about that in another episode. Famous phrase. But yeah, so like there's a lot of different components, but the academy is serving as that overarching umbrella of all these different niche type groups that are coming out in dietetics. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of covers the...
Yeah, I think so. And I think to your point of like, there's other groups like ASPEN. So that one's for enteral parenteral nutrition. So those who are on tube feedings, or PPN, TPN, which is parenteral nutrition, total parenteral nutrition.
Yeah.
I think having those separate groups, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great resource.
Yeah.
Kind of as we said, the dietetics practice groups, the DPGs, are a important part of the academy. Bridging out, going into other groups is very important too. So you get that continued education. You stick with areas that you are interested in, you want to work in, you are working in. But the academy, I think, bridges where we need to come together as a profession. And again, it doesn't necessarily, have to be every single dietitian, but in order to be able to have a voice and promote change in our profession, it's the academy who's going to do that and who has been doing that for our profession. Again, as you've said, there are things that we all don't agree upon. We all don't agree upon everything and anything we do, right, as far as maybe it's our job, maybe it's home life, things like that. But overall, that's who's going to come together, hear what we have to say as a delegate would do, and they would bring that then to the academy and say, these are the concerns from our members. This is what the members want. And this is what we should work towards. And every year, I'm going to say, and I think you might even agree with this, you were president of our state. I was president. You were president of our district at the time. It's hard to be president for just a year and then go on. Like, yes, of course, you don't want to be it any longer, so to speak. Like, it's a long time. It's a commitment. A lot of work. But by the time you're done with your term, it's like, well, let me do that for one more year. Like, let me get into it. So our presidents of the academy, it's the same thing. They're only in there for 1 year. They're an elect, and then they're a past president. So yes, it's a 3-year commitment, but the time you're really kind of, I'll say, in charge or the leader is only a year. And to be able to focus on a specific area or specific things to get done in that year is very difficult. So I think having some grace with, you know what, okay, I see that this isn't a pro to what I think, or this isn't something that I agree with, but how can I help make that message heard so in the future it doesn't happen? And so that's where I think the academy is, as I've been since I was a junior, I think, in college, was when we had to, in a way, they kind of encouraged us, which I think is a good thing as a student, to see what your profession has out there to offer you. And I don't ever foresee me not being a member. Again, even if I don't agree with everything, even if I'm like, oh, you know what, this is not a great year for the academy. Like, I don't agree with a lot of things, or like, I'm not getting any benefit this year. With how many people I've met you, Micki, I've networked with so many other dietitians in our state, even those in different states. It's just an important part of our profession, and professionally, for you to move forward or to have access to resources, it's important, and it's not something I don't want to have. And the cost of it is probably one of the lowest. I think they've done like a cost benefit analysis, and like, we don't pay anything compared to what the pharmacists pay, what doctors pay. Like, it is, for what you're getting, you're paying 10 to 15, maybe 20 cents a day for it. And it's really, I mean, even if you benefit it from it a couple times a year, for the cost of it, it's worth it. It really is.
Yeah, I think people, the more you're involved you're in it, the more benefit you see.
Yes. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think just being a member and paying what I paid to become a member and meeting just the people I've met, priceless. Like that MasterCard commercial, like that was priceless to me. I've met so many amazing dietitians that are very good friends of mine, and even DTRs, even students that have become colleagues. Like, I've met so many amazing people. That alone has been, amazing to me. And I want to circle back to the president thing that you mentioned about how it's so hard to make change in that first year. And even me, as myself, I was president of the state affiliate, and I had so many things I wanted to change and so many things I wanted to do. And with anybody, things come up, priorities have to change. You have to circle to different things. You have to reprioritize. Yes, I did make a couple changes that I thought were beneficial at the time. I think some of them are still kind of in place. And then each president makes it their own, and they have their own priorities. And that's why we elect, who we elect and things like that. But as far as I know, yes, we do have paid positions within the academy, and we have a variety of employed people, making sure that the organization itself runs. But those positions, those national positions, are volunteer positions. So again, take that with a grain of salt. They a lot of times, their jobs may be a little bit more flexible because they're in such a prestigious position, but they're still volunteering. They have to go through a ton of media training. They have to go through a ton of just overall leadership training, and just you have to have so much different experience. And I think take that with a grain of salt, right? Again, also with any other election or elected position, you can go in there with all the ideas in the world, and there's going to be people that don't agree with you, or that vote against you, or you're going to have to regroup. And so, like you said, I think being a part of it and seeing what changes can be made and having that experience, I think definitely has made me more empathetic to those people that are in those jobs. Because I mean, when I was president, it took up a lot of my time, and not in a bad way. I enjoyed it, but that 3-year commitment was a lot. And I felt the same way. I was like, I wish I had one more year, because now I know what I'm doing. But also I'm like, I can't wait to hand this over. I was tired. I was tired of giving all of my energy to this one project, when I'm all over the place. So I'm like, I want to do 60 different things. So it definitely took a toll on my mental health to do it, but I enjoyed it. I'm not saying I didn't, but just understand that there's a lot of moving parts, and we're all volunteers, and we're all people in those roles.
Yeah, and most everyone has a full-time job in addition to that, so they're working 8 to 10 hours a day most likely. And then you're asking them to do pretty much another full-time job on top of it, with the meetings, with the trainings, with what they actually have to get done, with meetings, all those things to have with the members. It is a lot. So yes, I agree, just having that grace of, it's not going to be perfect. And dietitians are very A-type perfectionist kind of people. So acknowledging that, no, this is not a perfect system. It's not a perfect membership. It's not a perfect society to be in. That's okay. And that's why being a part of it is so important, to help make the changes moving forward that we want.
1000%. I think we can go into CDR next.
CDR, yeah. Okay. Commission on Dietetic Registration.
Yes. So all dietitians have to be registered through the Commission on Dietetic Registration, because that's where you take your exam through. That's where you
we take an exam.
We do.
We take an exam.
We talked about this in our first season. We take an exam to pass, and if we don't pass, we have to take it again, and again until we pass. Which I think, again, infamous phrase, we will cover the RD exam in depth, I think, in a future episode, and like the pass rate and things like that. But right now, we take an exam, and that is through this CDR, and we also do continuing education through CDR, and we have to log that. It's a 5-year cycle. And there's a variety of different opportunities for that and things like that. But so that is like our regulating board. Yeah. All dietitians have to be, if you ever not fulfill your CEU or continuing education units, you do not get to be an RD anymore. You lose your registration, and if you want it back, you have to take that exam again. And I know me, I never want to take that exam again. So
no thanks. Yeah, so we have to have 75 hours of continuing education credits every 5 years. So really, that's 15 hours a year. And all dietitians do not have to have a license or a certificate in their state. I know that's a little bit separate, but in the state of Pennsylvania, we have licensure. So we have to be LDNs, licensed dietitian nutritionists, in order to practice nutrition as well. And if you're not practicing, like Micki doesn't practice nutrition. She teaches it and does a lot of other things in nutrition, but she's not counseling or doing medical nutrition therapy on a consistent basis. So she doesn't technically need licensure, but she has it, right?
Yeah, I have it, and I will always have it in case, God forbid, I do decide to change jobs, or I decide maybe I want to open a side private practice one day, or I will always keep that licensure because it is so hard to regain it, I think, once you lose it.
And just, in fact, regain it for your state then, too. Like, if they see licensure is going down, who's going to support us to continue to be licensed? And again, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, which I think we alluded to that in our first, not our first episode, but our first season when we talked about licensure a little bit too. So, I will keep it, and, if I ever decide to career change, and then also having that license, if I ever want to be licensed in another state, again, telehealth is a huge thing right now. And, what if I wanted to join one of those companies that does telehealth? Well, having one license makes it so much easier actually to get licensure in another state. So, just having that is super beneficial to me. Yes, it's a pain in the butt to pay the fees and do a whole nother basically log of continuing education, but for me, it would be worth it to keep it, because redoing all that just sounds even worse.
Yeah, so our licensure, we need 30 hours in our state for every 2 years. So again, it kind of breaks down to 15 hours a year. And our statewide annual meeting that we go to pretty much covers that. Maybe not this year, because I know it's just a day this year, but most of the time it almost covers, between, I would say, 8 and 15 credits is what we typically can get at a conference. So most dietitians don't just do one conference in a year. They're going to do webinars. They're going to go to other speaker events and such. But
yeah, even the journals provide CEUs, because the journal has quizzes and stuff. There's even like independent research and stuff. You can get credits for being a preceptor, for being in a leadership role. So I got credit for every leadership role. So have you, like, for every leadership role, we've had an affiliate group. So it all kind of ties together. And yes, CDR is technically under the academy, but again, you have to be a member of CDR. Not a member, it's not really a membership group, but like you have to be registered through CDR. Which that's how the academy, I guess, kind of knows who's a member and who's not, essentially. So that's CDR. They do function semi-independently. I have seen, representatives from the Academy, CDR, and ACEND, which we'll talk about, all on a panel, and they have all not very differing opinions, but just they communicate, but I don't know if they communicate the best together. I think they could do a little bit better job with that, but I say that not knowing the ins and outs, but I don't think they have the most united front. So I think that's something that they can do better on. But regardless, CDR and ACEND are under the academy in some level. So,
and CDR has persons, I will say, on their leadership board that actually come up with the questions for the tests, and
Correct.
that's kind of where the communication sometimes may not be similar, is that
Correct.
the academy is saying one thing, ACEND is saying, hey, this is what we're teaching, this is how your questions need
You're
to be.
very correct.
So
yeah, that was I was at a meeting in Seattle for NDEP, actually. It was the Nutrition Dietetics Educator Practice Group, and we had a whole session on that, and the pass rate for the exam has gone down. We are going to do a full episode on that because I find that very interesting. And we were kind of like having this panel with CDR as one of the reps, and we're like, what is going on? Like, why is this change made the fail rate go up so much? And they were kind of like, well, we form the questions based off what practice is, and like we're teaching stuff, and it's like ACEND will be like, well, actually what you're teaching is what should be on the exam. And Correct. It's like, well, wait a minute, like what's going on then? And why is the fail rate high? And then, you know, they say that those questions are made off of practitioners. Like they have practitioners writing the questions for the exam based off of what they would need to know. And it's not matching up. It's not, and I don't know who's writing those questions. I say this is like my famous joke, and I don't know if this was a test question, because on the exam they do pilot questions that don't really count for anything, but they see if, you know, how students take them. And one of my questions was, what's the atomic weight of magnesium? Why would you
chemistry?
Yeah, why would I ever need to know that when there's a periodic table in most classrooms, right? You know, like I could look that up very easily. I got that question right, which is I don't know how I did it, but I did. But again, why would I need to know that as a practitioner when I can, like, we can Google that if we really needed it but I don't think we've ever needed the atomic weight of any sort of mineral or ever in my history of practicing as a dietitian. So I did not understand why that was needed. And I asked that to the CDR rep. I was like, I'm assuming this was a pilot question, but why would that even be a pilot question? Why would anybody need to know that? Who was writing that question? Mm-hmm. And they're like, we just get them from any practitioner, just like you. I'm like, well, I want to speak to that person, because so I can only imagine what questions, and again, we'll never know unless we take it again, what kind of questions the students are getting on those exams. We can guess, and we can use all the resources in the world, but we'll never really know. So I think it's really important for exam writers to really focus on what students actually need to know versus, I don't know if you're trying to get back at students or what you're trying to do. Like, why are you making it so difficult if you're writing them? Or, you know, talk to your program directors and see what's actually being taught as, you know, for preceptors. As and well. Yeah. I think that's a big component. So again, this is a whole other episode that I went off on a tangent, but
that's okay.
That's a whole thing, you know, we can talk about. But yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, but
yeah,
you know.
And the only other thing I believe CDR does, so we have to log our hours into that CDR. We submit them every 5 years. They review the certificates and everything. If they have questions, they reach out to us. They also offer in the CDR web portal an area to get CEUs as well, but then that's the area that if you're going for an additional certification, so a specialty certification, that's also where the CDR comes in. So pediatric, renal, oncology, sports, weight management. There's a new one, I think, for that, right? I think that's through CDR. I could be wrong.
It is. Nope, you're right.
What other ones am I missing? Geriatric.
Yes. I can't remember.
There's less than 10 of them, so I may be missing one or two. But that is where you would actually go in and fill out your application for those. The application is fairly simple, but you have to they have requirements for how I will say young of an RD you are, as far as how many years, not age wise, how many years have you been a dietitian, and have you been able to get the practice of meeting that specialty. So I actually, and I don't mind sharing this because I shared on my social media, that I took the oncology examination to try and get my CSO, certified specialist in oncology, and I did not pass the test, but you had to have how many hours was it? Like 1,200 hours, I'll say. Maybe it was a little less than that. 1,200 hours. And that's just really like, you have to submit this application and like your supervisor has to sign off on that.
Mhm.
So if it looks like outrageous, you've only worked a year and you've put like, you've worked 1,200 hours in this specialty and you're doing like every area of nutrition, well, maybe that's questionable.
Mhm.
Now, diabetes, that's not through CDR because that is an actual certification that other professions can get. So dietitians are included in who can get that. But for an example, if you were to say you met 1,200 hours of diabetes education in a year as your first or second year of a dietitian, and you're doing general nutrition education, sure, there's high probability that you could get 1,200 hours for diabetes because that's a very common diagnosis. Even if it's pre-diabetes, I'm sure that you're doing carb counting, you're doing things like that. So as long as your supervisor doesn't see any outrageous numbers and you're being, again, reporting appropriately and accurately, that they can approve that. So the application process is pretty simple, but that's on CDR as well.
Correct. Yep.
And they also have, now that I'm thinking as we're going through this, they have modules that you can complete. So there are additional certificates of training. So there's a difference between getting a specialty certification. That's an additional couple letters after your name if you pass an exam or whatnot. The certificates of training just offer you that additional education. You get your CEUs from that. And sure, you get, a nice certificate that you can print out and put in your office. So like I've done the celiac disease one because I have celiac disease, and why not get that one? It's a pretty simple one to get. There's really, there might be a couple test questions at the end, but you pretty much are like guaranteed to get the certificate of training at the end. But that does not give you any additional credentials. It's just you've done specialty training for it, so you have a little more education and knowledge in that area.
Yeah, I'm the same thing for the advocacy day that we do through the state. There was a policy and advocacy certificate of training, so I completed that. It was really interesting, but yeah, no extra credentials at the end of my name, but just extra training, which is nice.
So that's CDR. So there's things on there that kind of overlap with the academy that are offered, and then kind of the initial basis of our profession is, how do we become a dietitian? And that's through the ACEND program. So Micki, go ahead. Let's talk about that.
So ACEND is the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition Dietetics. I always mess that one up, and I talk about ACEND every day of my working life. So like I talk about it all the time, and I never get the acronym right. So I'm surprised I got it right there. But yeah, so ACEND is the accrediting body for all nutrition and dietetics programs if you wish to be an accredited provider of education in nutrition and dietetics, because there are some non-accredited programs out there that teach nutrition, but you can't go basically through the process of maybe becoming a dietitian if you do not complete one of these accredited programs, which we are doing in this series, a whole pathways to become a dietitian. I think that's our next episode, so stay tuned for that. But accreditation is a resource. It's also probably the bane of all program directors' existence in the best way possible. They really are making sure that what programs are doing and teaching are relatively consistent. Each program's individual and different, and they have their pros and cons for each student, but they really set the standards for what each program is teaching. And there's a variety of different programs out there for each student that can be beneficial. So they're really in charge of doing that. And they conduct site visits. Program directors do self-studies to help make sure that we're meeting the specific standards set out by accreditation. So it is very important to, keep up with that and, make sure you're collecting data on your program and things like that. And then they house all of that data as well. They have an entire program directory, so students can go on that program directory and look up specific states and programs and types of programs and what they're looking for, even concentrations, and look through that.
So if I can interrupt, if I'm a student looking for a program to become a dietitian, I can go on the ACEND website and I can search, if I live in Pennsylvania, search all the programs that Pennsylvania has that are accredited. And then maybe because I want to stay in the state of Pennsylvania, maybe I want to stay on the eastern side or maybe the western side of the state. Yes, it's a big state. Trust me.
Yeah, it is. Compared to some,
takes
it
4.5 hours
and
to get from one side to the other.
There's a lot of programs in Pennsylvania. Like there's a lot.
Are.
But yeah, and you can tailor it to whatever program you're looking for. So currently, Marywood, where I work, and I'm the program director, we have a master's in dietetic internship program, and we also have a DPD program, which
didactic program dietetics.
Thank you so much.
You're
I always mess that one up too. And I, again, deal with that every day. We currently have those. We are in the process of applying to become a future education model program, graduate program model. We are in candidacy for that. And again, that's next episode. But there's different pros and cons to each program type. But basically, a student could be like, well, I'm looking for a dietetic internship program. You can search that by state, by program, and it will pop up there. If you're looking in California, you can do that in California. You can also look for distance programs. So we also have a distance program. So you don't have to be physically in Pennsylvania to complete that program.
But you like their program, and that's why
yes,
you want to apply.
Like a lot of students like ours, because we have a sports and human performance nutrition degree. So yeah, so we get students who are interested specifically in sports and human performance nutrition to complete that degree, but they might be in California, Texas, Hawaii, wherever, and they can still complete that completely, online. So there's but that's ACEND's job, is basically to accredit that. We each have like a representative. So I email my ACEND rep probably once a week, asking questions, because I am a relatively newer program director. So yeah, they're typically usually previous program directors. So they're not just like Joe Schmo. They've had some experience within programs and stuff. So
they're a good resource for you as a program director to make sure, hey, am I meeting this? Like, is this okay if I do this for the program? Is this okay if I offer this class? Is this yada yada?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So overall, they basically make sure that those students are eligible to complete the RD exam or the NDTR exam, because those standards that are set by them need to be met by us. And then as long as a student completes all of the standards and competencies, sometimes performance indicators, they can sit for the RD exam. And there usually is an hour requirement for every program. So students have to require so many hours of supervised practice to be able to sit for the RD exam. So all of that is housed under ACEND.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we'll move into other stuff about that in future episodes for sure.
So ACEND is really like the undergrad, graduate programs in we'll say the university programs.
Yeah,
that's
university,
kind
college.
Of what ACEND oversees.
So like there's a bunch of food service companies that have dietetic internships. Again, we'll talk about that, I think. But like Sodexo, Aramark, they all have dietetic internship programs who can also partner with universities, or they can have their standalone dietetic internship. And they have standards they complete it, but there's no like college credit if it's just through that, because like Sodexo, there's no University of Sodexo or like Aramark College. Like there's not that. So either they partner with a university, or it's just a standalone DI dietetic internship.
Yeah, and I know some other like facilities might have their own, like where I work, they have their own kind of program that is ACEND accredited, but they would have to partner with the university.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. So a lot of Department of Veteran Affairs have their own programs.
Typically the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Your Florida ones, Arizona, maybe California has one. Yeah, I'm not sure which other ones do.
Even the Department of, I think it's, the PA Department of Health, like they have their own.
Oh, nice.
And they usually partner with WIC. And usually, again, each program is different. They have their own stipulations. Some of them you have to work for them for so many years after you complete it through them, because I think they actually pay you, and they let you work, or they provide stipends or whatever. So there's fine print. So again, if that's where you see yourself working for a few years, then that might be the route for you. But most college ones, they place you or you find your own site. And, again, that's all through the accreditation process. And all those little bits and pieces all need to be applied, and ACEND reviews all that. Like, we don't just get to be like, okay, we're accredited, now you can do whatever you want willy-nilly. Like, you have certain steps and rules to abide by. So that's kind of providing the standard, and then you can customize it the way you want it. But
nice. That was a good review of ACEND.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was a good review of all of those.
True.
So if you have any other questions that went unanswered in this episode about those, please let us know in the comments. I hope this helped provide some, clarifying information, because I know there's like a lot of confusion. They're like, well, what's ACEND, and is that the same thing as A&D, and is that the same as, like, no, they're all different. So hopefully that provides some clarification on that for sure. But all right, do you want to do our sweet and sour this week?
Sure. Should we start with our sweet?
No, we're going to save that for the end.
Okay.
I think. So let's start with our sours.
Okay, so sour. So my sour is this time of year taking down, well, not even this time of year, any time of year where you put up decorations, it's taking them down then. Because it's kind of sad, right?
Yeah,
like,
sad.
Kind of like ending the joy that you once had at the beginning of the season. I know some people may be like, you're like, oh, finally I get to take them down. But like, I only put my holiday decorations up maybe a week or two before the actual holiday, like everything, I had bits and pieces here and there. So once I got it up, it was finally the holiday, and I'm like, I'm not taking these things down. And now I have family maybe coming in, so I'm like, well, I want them to see my decorations. So once that happens, I'm gonna have to take them down, and it's just like, oh. But I am an organizer too, so I think that's where I get kind of, I won't say stressed, but a little anxiety of like, I want to make sure everything's in the right bin, and I've gotten a couple more decorations this year, so maybe I have to have some extra bins. So, it's a process for me when I put things away. It isn't just throw them in a bin and be done with it.
Yeah, and I think there's an organization component, at least for most people. Like, you can't just throw them anywhere and call it a day. Like, you have to pack them up nicely. And but no, I agree. It's like sad. Like, right now we're in the process, and it's sad. It's just sad to see the tree bare, and like, we have an artificial tree, so it's like, it's just a sad time.
Yeah,
but I agree, because you put all that work into it.
You did.
It's so beautiful. But all right, so my sour right now is this is probably terrible to say, but I'm just really sad. Right now when we're recording, the semester starts tomorrow, and I'll be honest, I've been enjoying the break. I've been enjoying some time off, because not only does the semester start for me, I'm teaching multiple classes this semester, but I'm also taking another course, and this course, the instructor is a wonderful human being, but it looks like a very work intensive course. So I'm like kind of bummed. I'm like, darn it.
Yeah.
So I'm just like not looking forward to all that stress kind of going back. And the other problem with starting the semester, the routine has changed because I'm teaching a couple night classes. That changes my routines at night, and that affects my work day and things like that. So it's also this is all an adjustment time. So I'm sure I'll be stressed about that, like just kind of figuring out when to make dinner, and like when I'm going to eat, when I'll be home, when I'm not home, how to finagle all that. So
I'm glad you mentioned that, because our last episode of season 1 was about, it was episode 9, about New Year's resolutions. A lot of people are doing new things in the new year, and you have to take that time to adjust. So like, you can't just start off gung-ho and assume it's going to be all the same. So I'm glad you're going to take that time to like figure out your routine and make it what it needs to be for your comfort, for your sanity, and for your health then too.
Well, because I mean, if I'm teaching a night class, one of them's 4:30 to 6:30, the other one's 5:30 to 8:30. I know then, how am I going to adjust my work day, or how am I going to adjust my day to get other things done that normally I would do maybe at night, or, even just like hygiene. Like, I'm a night shower person. So like, just kind of figuring all that out is going to take me some time, and it's going to be probably a stressful couple weeks, but
and we know part of that is not waking up any earlier than you have to.
No, I am not a morning person, as we mentioned. So, it's kind of like, all right, adjusting. I function well at night. The night class teaching is not the problem for me. It's more so than just figuring out how to do everything else that I need to do.
Yeah.
Because I actually function better at night, and sometimes I end up doing work at night anyway. So it doesn't affect that component to me, but it affects, me coming home, eating, that kind of stuff. Like I'll have to meal prep, potentially eat before I start teaching, which, that time change might be different. So just a couple things like that.
Yeah.
But
well, good luck.
Thanks. I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay.
I'll keep you posted. But all right, so we have a joint suite this week.
Yes, we do. Season 2 episode. What are we on? 11. Episode 11. 11. Yeah.
So if you are watching on Spotify or YouTube, you might have noticed these fancy schmancy little mugs here. And if you can't see, Emily's going to come up to the thing. They have our logo on them. And they have the RD Squeeze logo on them, along with this very cool, Emily has one in the back here, but I have mine here. It's a very cool, like, little award that says #1 podcast host. Congratulations on the RD Squeeze. And these were graciously and wonderfully bought by our significant others. So Emily's husband, Joe, and my... I was about to say
maybe soon.
We'll see. I don't know. My boyfriend Carmen. Yeah, he does. He listens to every episode. He's quite possibly the best. But he and Joe bought these from McDermott Custom Creations. You can find them on Facebook and I think Instagram.
Yes,
but
shout out! Thank you so much. We love our new little mugs here.
Yeah, our merch. So maybe one day we'll have merch. But yeah, McDermott Custom Creations is owned by Ryan and Christy, who are very good friends of Carmen. Actually, Carmen, one of Carmen's best friends, and they do all engraving and like they do really cool, just like a bunch of different creations. So please check them out.
Yeah,
they're not
so nice.
They're not a sponsor, but I mean, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, speaking of that, we're always looking for sponsors. If you're interested,
if you're interested, we're here.
We're very open to sponsorship and working through that process. Yeah. But right now, we just kind of want to share our nice little sweet mug. So cheers
to the new year.
Cheers to the new year.
Season 2. I don't know why we keep saying episode, but season 2.
Season 2.
Getting into it with our students and getting some more students maybe and interns geared up for our profession and making it a better place to be in the health and wellness world.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you can like and share and comment and all the fun things, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, everyone.